go. I think we're live now. And so this is Skyfall Blind Dreamer with the Dreamworld podcast. And we are just going to chat with each other and basically kind of interview each other, get to know each other, discuss lucid dreaming topics, and whatever the heck else comes up during the next basically hour or so. And all right, you want to introduce yourself?
Awesome. Yeah, happy to be here. So I'm Amina. Like you said, I host the Dreamworld podcast. And I really just started it because of that. I love talking about dreams. I'm so fascinated by it. I have like a psychology background, did some research in college. And then I did my master's thesis on lucid dreaming. So obviously I'm like obsessed with it. And I've been lucid dreaming since I was like a little, like 8 maybe. And then I started just inducing it and learning more about it. So yeah.
So when did you actually learn like what you were doing was lucid dreaming? When did you actually learn that? Because you seems like you started out as a natural, so you were doing this without really trying. So when did you learn that what you were doing had a name and it was called lucid dreaming?
Probably in high school, even though, at the time it was not as popular. There was not much online about it. But, I would kind of just by talking to my friends and stuff, some people would be lucid and some wouldn't. So I think I learned about the term then. But I didn't get really that deep into like inducing it until like college, really, when I started to just get more fascinated by like the world and stuff.
Yeah, for me personally as well, I'd had like a couple of natural inside my life, but not to the same level as like a natural who gets them frequently. And I didn't know I heard about it randomly online. Like it was really random. I'm just browsing through YouTube as someone will on their phone. And I hear about it, and I didn't really learn, very well, but I was infatuated by it because I'm really good at imagining. I'm good at coming up with a bunch of scenarios, and I've always been able to remember dreams. In fact, I thought it was normal to remember multiple dreams every night, or dreams every night, or every other night. I thought that was normal, but when I learned that most people aren't remembering their dreams, that was an anathema to me. But I learned what lucid dreaming was back in 2020. It was the year of hell for many people, and it was a saving grace for me, and I became a passion for me. Just want to point out Voidway Explorer said he's watching on both channels, so everyone gets watch time. Thank you very
Cool.
much.
Thank you. I'm trying to figure out if my stream is. Oh, hold on. Now I have an echo.
Mm-hmm. I'm just saying hello.
I don't know if yours is streaming to mine, but
Wait. You can't hear me on yours. It should be streaming to both.
do I have to click go live, right?
Um, that's kind of yeah. You kind
Yeah.
of do. Did
Yeah,
you
I
not do
did.
that?
Yeah, I did do that, but
Did
I
you
don't.
verify that? Can you verify that it's streaming over there?
It's streaming. It's just my camera, right? It's not it's
Hold
not
on.
your setup.
Hold up. Can you go to your own watch page and see what the audio is like over there on your own watch page real quick? Or
Yeah.
can someone on Amina's stream like wait, you're on both. Can you mute mine for me please and watch hers and see if you're
I thought
hearing
I hear
both of
on the
us on hers
laptop.
and report back to me please? Can you do that for me? And thank you Cappuccino for showing up. Um she is really kind. Her name is Amina. She introduced herself. Thank you Crystal. I appreciate it. Best of luck to you on your studying. But yeah, Voidway, if you could just
I
verify
think
that
they can
for me,
only
please.
hear me. Yeah.
That is not normal because we just did this 2 weeks ago and didn't have that issue.
Um.
I have no idea why that would be the case. It should
I
be
mean,
streaming.
damn.
This is. I want to get feedback on this first.
Yeah.
You only hear. Oh crap. Okay. All right.
I had to mute my YouTube stream because there was like an echo.
Wait. Hold on a second. So. I'm wondering then. I'm wondering actually. So now I'm actually curious. Okay. Because I have it set to stream to both destinations and it doesn't discriminate. You're part of the stream. Maybe verify. Because they're hearing both of us on mine.
Yeah.
And
I can hear myself when I have my YouTube mic on.
hold on, let me. And I have it set on the layout. Hold on a sec. Let me.
Should I end my stream and restart it? I don't know if that would fuck it up.
I don't. Hold up
Sorry
a second.
about that.
All right, this is interesting because I've never had this happen before. Because the whole point of streaming to multiple destinations is it streams everything to both destinations. Interesting. Oh, do you have a layout option on your end? Hold on, check your StreamYard settings. Do you have like a StreamYard panel on your end with buttons, or not?
It just says customization, and I have like just some basic YouTube settings.
Okay. Let me see something here. I am very curious. I'm very curious what this is. I think the last time I did this, I did it with a shared screen, but the screen layout, that's just cameras. That's not audio.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I can just
Mm-hmm.
I have to mute my YouTube, otherwise I hear myself talking. But
Interesting.
on TikTok I could just share your screen, but for
Yeah,
YouTube,
you could do that there.
yeah.
Cappuccino said she said I checked her stream. I saw and heard both of you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I have one person reporting that they only heard you, and I have one person reporting that they heard both of us.
Okay,
Oh,
well.
it said her stream has no sound. I think I know what the problem was. I think you might have hit a button on your end that muted the audio on your stream itself.
Okay, yeah. So that makes sense, but now like right now it's not muted, but I can hear an echo, so I'm trying to figure out.
I think the echo is because you're watching it.
Oh.
So
can I close that tab?
You can pause the playback. You don't need to watch your own playback page. Make sure on your stream page. So like on your stream page, make sure it's not muted on your stream page itself. So like you have the StreamYard page and then you have the page with your actual stream up, and you don't want to close that page because that's where the end button is. And you don't want to close that page, but you have the page with the stream up. I always manage these in multiple tabs, by the way. For reference, when I do this, I have two tabs open at a minimum. Usually it's two. I don't like to overcomplicate things. I like to keep it simple. And so I usually have two tabs open. Right now I'm in my stream tab because I got my StreamYard settings working. And that's where I basically focus now.
I'm in my stream tab, but I can't figure out how to like close so I don't hear myself.
There's a pause button up there at the top. You can just hit that. It pauses the playback. You don't need to hear the playback.
Oh, on StreamYard or?
No, up on so where it has the page that has the end button up there that has the stream. It should show. It should have it'll have like a little player up there.
Okay, let me try something.
And
okay, I think I fixed it.
And you hit stop live playback because you don't want to hear the live playback. But you want to make sure, because I think there is a button that would mute your audio. So yeah.
Is that you?
What?
Do you hear that or no? Is that just me?
Oh, it says she has two lives on, not including this one. One of them shows both, the other just shows her. This is weird.
Let me go to my YouTube. Okay, I'm so sorry about this.
Wait, oh my goodness. Did you accidentally make a new stream?
I don't think so, but I see now. Now one of them's working. I can try to close one.
I think I know what you did, okay? See, because my stream key is valid, I think you might have accidentally made a second stream. I don't know how you did that.
I don't know either, dude. I'm so sorry. This is my first time ever streaming on YouTube, y'all. Okay, I'm sorry.
Let me see if I can fix it. She's never done it with a stream key
before. So, okay, I see what happened. No. The one I created is the one that's not working, and then it created a new one for our shared stream.
That's not
what
how
it did.
Wait, I think I know what happened, okay? I think I know what happened. I think what happened is when you clicked on it, you clicked on like the stream settings and you thought it was the settings for our stream. I don't know if you clicked on the name of the stream. When you clicked on the streaming stuff, did you originally click on the name of the live stream?
I like, did you see? Yeah, the one that I created though.
Yeah, like when you went into that setting, you saw the list of like upcoming streams and you specifically clicked on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm trying to see what the hell could the only hypothesis that makes any remote sense is that it created a new stream, and when I started streaming to the stream key, it streamed to that. And when you went live, it went live on a new stream. But as long as it has the same name.
We're in motion now. Yeah,
Okay,
I
as long
mean,
as that's the same name and everything. I want to apologize to Amina's followers. That was
oh,
not
it's okay. They
intentional.
know that I always fuck shit up. Oh,
Yeah, that
okay.
was not
I
intentional on
curse.
anyone's behalf. And I'd like to apologize to mine too. We just had some minor
Yeah,
technical
I'm sorry,
difficulties. It
guys.
looks like we're going, guys, but I always want to make sure everything's taken care of. This is why we test things in advance. It doesn't always work
True.
out, but this is why we test things in advance and make sure it works.
Yeah, okay, I'm so
Mhm.
sorry about that, but yeah, we're good now.
Thank you very much, the guy Josh, Become Froggy, Cappuccino, and Voidway for all of your input. I appreciate all of you.
Yeah, y'all are awesome.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for the
much, all. You
patience.
guys are rock stars. Appreciate it. All right, let's get back. So we had just gotten in to the lovely story of how both of us started lucid dreaming. You learned about it talking to your friends. You started doing it on purpose in college. I started doing it in college. Well, actually, it was like 2020, kind of the middle. My life story is interesting, but I was doing it in 2020 and I developed a passion for it. But you talk about how you actually wrote a thesis on it, and can you talk about how you went into the psychology program and what got you to actually do a thesis on lucid dreaming?
Yeah, it's kind of funny actually because so when I was in my undergrad, I was like volunteering at a research lab, and it was mostly about just like children and mothers and like their memory and emotional behaviors and depression and that kind of stuff. So it was really interesting, but I got really like kind of sidetracked doing my own little experiments and just like researching on my own about like memory and dreams, because I kind of started to get into dreams and lucid dreaming, just like exploring for myself. And so then yeah, when I just applied to get my master's, at first I was like, I spent like a whole year just thinking about what I was gonna like do my project on, and I couldn't really decide and didn't really know. And then like I had this teacher that was like helping me, and he was like, yeah, most people, I just tell them like, what are you obsessed with? And at this point it hadn't clicked to me like, you can do it on dreams, duh. Like I was just interested in psychology, and I was exploring a lot of different fields at the time,
Mhm.
like within psychology and that kind, and medicine in general. Um, and the lucid dreaming stuff was kind of like a hobby, I guess. So I almost didn't connect it with my academic life at first. And then I was like, what am I obsessed with? Well, I'm obsessed with lucid dreaming. It's a big new field of research. And then I had like this duh moment of like, duh, like do it on lucid dreaming, like research something or whatever. And I'm also like a creative, and I do like art and design. So I did specifically, my topic was using lucid dreaming for creative inspiration and the creative process. But obviously, I talked about everything: science, how to induce it, what it is, um, examples, that kind of stuff. So it was a really fun project. I ended up just spending a lot of time on it, wrote a paper, got my degree, and now I just do the podcast and just, keep talking about it.
It is a lot of fun. Totally admit it's so easy to get caught up in. I will say last year when I actually did go to the IASD conference, it's probably the one thing I regret this year is not actually getting enough money to be able to make it, and being in the hotel being sold out and all that kind of stuff. I would have loved to have been there, but that's kind of what next year is going to be about. If it's going to be a huge leap, but it was so informative, fun, engaging in a more intellectual way, because I like I'm obviously really bad at art, and so I didn't really do much with the artists there for obvious reasons in some ways. But I love talking to the researchers, the intellectual aspect, what people were actually studying, and just like getting an idea of what people were doing, especially particularly lucid dreaming. Obviously, that's what I was there for. And what I discovered is that people would go and there were a lot of people who were really open and accessible, easy to talk to, and they would go over to the hospitality suite and just talk. And gosh, we talked about everything from there's a wide variety. I can't keep track. Everything from obviously dream control, lucid dreaming techniques. Um, there was conversations I had about dream recall, and then there's something we call dream delving in the lucid dreaming community that the scientific community actually refuses to really name. And I think it's one of those things that does deserve to be named. And I actually discussed that with a couple of people. I ended up getting into a whole discussion on the Dune series, which I had started reading with some people there. It was there's just so many things to talk about, so many people, and the personalities of everyone who goes, they're just so great. Uh, you never know who you're going to run into at an event like that, and just the kinds of conversations you're going to have with people. And so what got you into like making the podcast and just getting active in lucid dreaming? Like, What got you doing that?
Yeah, man, the conference was amazing. Like, it was just not the conference, but I was just saying, based on what you said, like, yeah, talking to people and meeting so many people was awesome. Maybe I'll meet you at one of the next ones. But really, it was that, like, community, getting to know other dreamers. Like, I just discovered the conference this year. I loved it. It was amazing. And it was funny because talking to people in between, like you said, that's where like the real value comes, from, is just networking and meeting people. So I really got into it on Clubhouse at first, like Discord channels, and like even like a WhatsApp group. Like I was just researching different dream communities, and I started doing like these voice chat apps, like going live on Clubhouse when that kind of first came out. And there was a big group of lucid dreaming there, so that's kind of where I first started. Um, I met some people on there that, and then I don't know, I was just like in COVID, like, yeah, when the world went crazy, I was like, I want to start a podcast. And I just did. And then, it just kind of grew from there. And my goal for it was not to just me be talking. I wanted to make it a conversation with like anybody and anybody who wanted to come on there, and just dream share, talk about their perspective, and yeah, just keep that conversation going. So it's really community.
I've definitely loved the community aspect as well. That's why I got into Discord. I joined the Dream Cafe Discord like 2.5 days after I started like trying to learn lucid dream. And back then I wasn't learning in the best way because I didn't know better. I'm a beginner who knows nothing. And so I'm listening to whatever anyone says about it because I don't know anything yet. Because that's what a beginner does. A beginner looks for information, and when they find something, they read it or they absorb it and they listen to it, and they don't necessarily know the veracity of the information because they don't know anything about the field. That's what all beginners are like, to be honest. And some of them do more research than others, but for a beginner, when something is really prevalent and easy to access and find, especially in a understudied field like this, it's really easy to think you know things that you don't, or to learn things in ways that you might have to relearn down the road. And that's how it was for me. But luckily for me, what really helped me start learning in the beginning was I actually decided, you know what, this exploring the world of lucid dreaming, because I just heard someone mention it sounds really awesome. I need to get my hands on it, and I did exactly that. Um, I will say, there's this really good service I get through the National Library Service. They provide a lot of books to the blind for free. Honestly, there are a lot of things out there for people like me, and it's really amazing because one of the things that's so nice about it is it gives us so much exposure to things that we otherwise wouldn't have as much access to. Books is an amazing one. There's a wealth of knowledge in literature and exploration and enjoyment to be had in the world of reading. And this National Library Service is one of the services that makes reading not only accessible but affordable, because they pay the publishers and provide us these resources for free, and they do that as a national program, and it's really amazing. Now, Exploring the World Lucid Dreaming was not on Bard, so
Oh.
I actually went and bought that on Apple Books. I think to date it's still the only book I've ever purchased on Apple Books. On iBooks was Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming. Definitely worth it. Actually, did I get it? Yeah, I got it there. I didn't get it on Kindle. I got it there, and I started reading it, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I first started questioning what I learned when I got to like chapter 3, and I started reading about Milo, and it's like, this isn't what I remember hearing. And that's one of the things that kind of helped me start learning about lucid dreaming more, and meeting people online who were experienced. It's always good to find people who are experienced with it if you're learning from people. And I just found myself in a good community of people who I could trust and talk to and learn from, bounce ideas off of, and just discussion. Just
Yeah.
have when you have ideas, kind of like bounce ideas off people. Well, what would happen if this and this happens? And you're trying to figure everything out. And it was a really fun journey of exploring what lucid dreaming is. And it's I've basically been learning about it for a long time, and then teaching it to other people, because I'm that kind of person who, when I learn something, I like to help other people learn it, because like I do that with games. Like when I've played games, I learned how the systems work on the game, and I learned how this works. And so whenever there's a new player asking questions or something, I always go like, oh, well, you do this and this and this. I'm always looking to give people resources, or to help people when they have questions, because that's just what I do. And so the same thing with lucid dreaming, and it's been like that now for over 2.5 years.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that you just wanted to help teach people, because that is really important. People need, like, valuable information, and you can look online all you want, but sometimes just talking to other people that got into it and even started from scratch,
Mhm.
that can be really helpful.
Yeah, it is definitely. And I actually didn't think about like YouTube until it was August. It was like September, October 2021. So around August of 2021, Discord came out with stages. And I was like, okay, well, this would be a really good idea to be able to bring people into our server and get more community engagement with broader Discord communities. Back then, when you had a stage, you could make it public, which means anyone could join from any server or from anywhere and they could see it. And so there was actual exposure. I think the largest one I ever had, this is back when stages were popular. I had one that had like 55 people in it, and I actually needed a really big slow mode throttle on messages, and I had to have other staff members in there to actually moderate it because I made a thread for the discussions, and it was so hectic. Now my average wasn't nearly that big, but what really stopped me doing that was when Discord said it would no longer be public, and I'm like, well, I
Mm,
don't want to do this just for this one community. I want to have something where I could reach people wherever they happen to be. That's not a restricted space, or that doesn't require them to join one specific community, or be active in one space, or where I can't notify them in other ways. And so I decided, well, I can make a YouTube channel, and I can put, I thought I'll put some videos up there, and I have like, to my credit, I have like 3. I got some help editing, but my real passion has been live streaming. I do Q&As mostly. I do a lot of Q&As, and anybody is welcome. And I've done a few of these types of interview things where I would just talk to somebody I know or somebody I don't know in this case, and just get to learn from them.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I've been trying to get more into it too, so I appreciate you showing me how it works. Because yeah, long form conversation is really what I like. I have to adapt myself to like make videos for like TikTok and stuff and cut out all the details. But getting into the details is what I really love.
Cutting out the details is an anathema to me. Okay, people are always asking me to shorten what I write. I'm. You familiar with any other subreddits, but aside from the lucid dreaming one, like, are you familiar with people who make Reddit videos on YouTube?
I've seen some of them.
Are
Yeah,
Are you familiar with r/malicious compliance?
yeah, I know that
Okay.
one.
All right. You know how funny those can be sometimes?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, someone once asked me to describe mild in 2 sentences. And so I made the longest compound complex sentences I could, and it was 116 words.
And it was a full sentence. No
It was
way. A
it
run
was
on,
it was
probably.
exactly 2 sentences, but I can't
That's
properly
funny.
describe a technique in short sentences. I refuse to do that because you end up leaving
Yeah.
things out when you try to just cut things down. That's what I don't like about short-term content in
Yeah.
general. You're trying to explain too much in too little. And what you want the person to be able to get at the end of the day is a good understanding of how to do a thing, like, and enough to understand it in a sense. And I feel like, there's some things you can shorten and be okay with, but there are other things where you get to a point where you're trying to shorten it so much that what you're doing is you're cutting out key information and key things, and you're omitting things that are important. And I never want to do that. I prefer to be thorough. The average thing I write is decently long.
Yeah,
Um,
same. I agree.
yeah,
It's a bane of my existence, but I adapt because
yeah.
sometimes to reach a larger audience, especially people that aren't as into lucid dreaming and obsessed like we are,
Mhm.
you just got to cut to the point, and it sucks, but I have to do it for TikTok sometimes.
I will cut to the point, but it's a big point that I'm making. I
Yeah,
mean, it's not a small point. If you ask the question how to lucid dream and you get less than like if you get less than like a couple of paragraphs worth of information,
yeah, I
you're
wouldn't
not
trust
answering
it.
that question. I mean,
Yeah, because
you're not
that's such a
learning
vague
anything.
question. Like it's a different answer for like each person. You have to figure it out.
It's the vaguest question in the entire field. How do I
Yeah.
lucid dream? That's
Where do
the
I start?
there are entire books written on the subject, literal books you can go
Yeah,
read that are way longer than several paragraphs that don't even completely answer that question.
yeah, that's true.
So yes, I when people ask that, now the lazy answer, now the most common answer, I call it the lazy answer, but is to say like we'll go look at, like, you go look at the starting information. Now, and it depends on where you are. I don't recommend the Reddit starting information too much. There are a couple things in there I don't like. There's things in there that are good. There are other things in there I don't like um mild isn't appropriately described in there. There's a link to a wild guide that isn't really that, like, too great. There's some things in there, but so, like, I usually don't recommend that page. But what I do is, like, I'll give people like just a roadmap. Okay, well, you need the foundation of dream recall, obviously, and then I'll
Yeah.
give people like certain techniques. I'll say I recommend researching some techniques. Here are some guides to look at, and then you can start there, and then like you'll actually learn some things. Always gotta keep people to deal with like the common misconceptions. Let's have a little fun. What do you think is the most common misconception about lucid dreaming?
Hmm. There's a few, I think.
The most common one.
Maybe like that you can get stuck or something bad will happen or that it's hard. I find that a misconception.
I am thinking a little bit more basic. And for me and everyone that I talk to, and for all of us, who, when we're out here on like on the Discord servers or on Reddit, the most common misconception that people have about lucid dreaming is thinking that it means to control your dreams.
Oh, yes, that's a big one because and I talk about that all the time. That's not lucidity. That's dream control. That's the next
Yes.
step. Like lucidity is just aware. There's
Hmm.
some lucid dreams I cannot control at all.
Yeah, I came up with a funny analogy. It's not the best, but it'll do. I tell people like, if dream control were knowing how to fly an airplane, lucid dreaming would be knowing that you're on an airplane in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That's a good way to put it.
But one of them works off awareness, the other works off perception. They one helps you
Yeah.
to do the other. Like it if you like back to the airplane analogy, if you know how to fly an airplane, obviously knowing you're on one is going to be helpful in informing you when you're able to actually fly one. I mean, if you didn't know you're on a plane, would you actually end
Yeah.
up, would you be likely to try to fly one? I mean, so there is that side of it. The awareness does help you with the idea of, oh, well, I can try to do this now. Like it's an opportunity,
Yeah.
but the opportunity doesn't translate into the result. And so I really find that the most common misconception about lucid dreaming ever is that it means controlling your dreams, because it's
That's true.
misdefined that way thousands of times.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of people don't realize that it really is not just a yes or no type of lucidity kind of thing. Like it's a
Hmm.
spectrum of how lucid you can be. Whether you can control your dreams or not, you can be semi-lucid, you can be fully lucid, you can be kind of lucid, like, and anywhere in between. So like it really is just kind of hard, not hard to define,
Yeah.
but
I
you would have
actually I
to know.
actually think it's pretty easy to define it.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, as you get to know me, you start to learn that I love analogies a lot. And my analogy for lucid awareness is a dimmer switch,
Yeah, that's a good one.
right?
That's a really
And
good one.
why do you
Like the
think I
light is
chose
on.
a dimmer switch?
Because
Yes,
the light is on, that would be lucidity, I would imagine. And then there's different like brightnesses of how consciously aware you are. Fully
correct.
bright, kind of bright. And that's literally what it
Yeah,
feels like. Yeah.
precisely.
And that depends
And
on how much you can see.
yeah, yeah, precisely. That's exactly what I'm getting at. Because lucid, by definition, is being aware that you're dreaming. It's knowing that you're dreaming.
Hmm.
But the amount of awareness you have in that dream can drastically vary. It can
Yes.
be from barely acknowledging it and not really paying too much attention to it, all the way up to, I remember what I ate for breakfast yesterday, and there's some really fun thing I really want to do. And yes, my body is part of the dream, and so I might as well just like discard it or something. I mean,
Yeah.
like there's
Conscious decisions and
everything
yeah.
in between. Yes.
Yeah,
So
that's
there's
true.
so much.
And you can
Yeah,
go in and out of lucidity too. I'll start lucid
absolutely.
sometimes and then end up not, or vice
I
versa.
I did that last night. I was lucid. I had all right. So last night was insane. I think I slept 4 hours last night. I
Dang,
recalled 5 dreams, 4 of them lucid.
it's pretty good.
It was
Wow.
the largest number of lucids in one night that I've gotten in
I was about to
quite a
say.
while. And in the third of those, I was with my mother as a dream character and was kind of using her to like, help me, stay, not be anxious about waking up, which is one of the things that causes me to wake up the most. And we ended up teleporting to redacted airport near where I live. I actually do write redacted in parentheses in my dream journal because one, I think it looks cool, and two, I actually write my dream journals for public consumption as a sort of long-term project. On the chance that if anyone ever wants a long-term dream journal, I've been keeping pretty detailed records on my computer format since November of last year, and so I will maintain that for as long as I can. It's not really for recall specifically for me. It's for record keeping, and
Yeah.
also there are dreams that will refer to specific locations that are personal, or possibly names of people that are personal. And so instead of just being, sometimes I'll be vague about it, but sometimes I'll just say redacted in there on purpose because I think it looks cool. And and so when I'm describing like airports or cities near where I live, I will like redact that preemptively from the actual text of the dream journal. It's relevant to the scenario, but it's not something I wish to be publicly known. And so we were teleported to the airport, and I had us get on a flight to Milan just because long haul flights are cool. And also, since I can't afford it, I decided we'd sit in business class because it's my dream. And I think I lost lucidity when I was in the lie flat seat and dealing with like these extra seatbelts that showed up. I was like fiddling with them, and there was one from the seat behind me that shouldn't have been there. And I think I'd lost lucidity by that point. But I was thoroughly enjoying myself by that point already
Yeah,
anyway.
that sounds like a
So
nice vacation.
yeah,
I love
it was.
traveling. It's like a
I
free
have a lot of travel
trip.
things because I love to travel. So I love to travel. So I have a lot of travel related dreaming, and I had two of them. I had one where I was in Tucson, like I was going to the conference last year. This was the first of the Lucids from last night, and when I walked out of the airport, my dad showed up in his car, and he shouldn't be there. He should be like 2,000 miles away. And then it was like I was in another city that was closer to where I live, and I was like, okay, well that's how I figured out I was dreaming. I was like, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be in either of these two cities, actually. And
Yeah.
so it can be really chaotic. Sometimes you notice the oddest things when it comes to dream sign awareness. And a lot of people say, well, I don't notice any dream signs. I like to point out to people this much. Even if you're nightly lucid, and assuming you are getting assuming nightly lucid, you were getting one lucid dream a night. Okay, well, there's still 4 to 5 dreams each night in that case that you're not getting lucid. And so that means 80% of your dreams, you're not recognizing any dream signs. And so you're still succeeding with an 80% plus failure rate. And that's just counting the dreams, not actual individual dream signs. So even if you are failing to recognize dream signs, that doesn't mean you're not actually able to do it. It just means even if you have a high failure rate, you can still succeed and succeed at a pretty high rate as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I get that a lot too. It's like, how am I supposed to do a reality check in a dream if I don't know it's a dream? And it's really just training your mind and putting in that mental work throughout the day. And it's really like I've noticed a certain thought process that you just get used to doing, kind of like second nature, where you're automatically like, oh, this is weird. Is that a dream? Like anything
Mhm.
weird happens, like I take my reality checks very seriously. And that's how I get lucid most of the time is
Yeah.
by dream triggers and reality checks
I
for me at
haven't I
least.
don't do waking reality checks at all. I don't do them in dreams about 98% of the time. The only times I ever do them in dreams are in false awakenings, and only if I'm anxious or any way like I'm really unsure. And the reason for that is they're a confirmation measure. They're not actually what triggers lucidity in the sense. They're
They
what you do
can
when you're
be.
kind
They
of
can be.
questioning. They're
Yeah,
generally when you quote unquote get lucid through reality check. Generally, it's a subconscious process. You've noticed something that's causing you to do it. It's not random typically, even if you can't trace the exact moment. Like
yeah.
for me in dreams, for example, I will get there are a lot of times I'll get lucid without consciously noticing something specific, but I've been recognizing dream signs for so long. It's a subconscious process. All right.
Exactly.
I'll just find myself sitting on a New York City subway train and then boom, I'll just get lucid. There's so many dream signs around me. Any of them could have triggered it. It wasn't
That's
something I
true.
consciously did. I just boom, and it's a subconscious process. And that happens a lot with people. Like when you get the idea, oh, maybe I should do a reality check right now. You may not think you really consciously noticed something that made you want to do that, but subconsciously you're likely noticing something and you're coming up with that association that maybe you should do that. And a lot of that time in that case, if you're thinking that you're dreaming, you are. And that's why state testing, as it's typically called, is a confirmation measure because you're already questioning. It's not the thing that causes you to question.
Yeah, that's true. I honestly relate to that a lot because a lot of times I'll just become lucid, like you said, naturally, because that's like that thought process has become second nature
Mhm.
to me. I do sometimes, like when I'm like unsure, the reality check itself will make me lucid. Like, oh wow, I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting that. I just did it to confirm. But I still recommend to people to kind of find their way with it because that habit, beginning with state checking or reality checking, whatever you call it, that can kind of begin to like establish that thought process to you, and then it becomes second nature. Like I don't need to do reality checks. I usually become lucid and I just know, like you just feel it, what
Yeah.
it feels like to be lucid. It's
Yeah.
just different. It's really weird. But yeah, and it is subconscious for me a lot of the times. Like I don't know exactly what. I'll just be like, oh, this feels like a dream. I just know what I did
Yeah.
yesterday. I know that I fell asleep. I had that continuous awareness, so I kind of just have a feeling.
I have seen, and I do agree with a couple of valid points that do come up with state testing. There are three terms for reality checks. The like original term state testing, like LaBerge and Lamarca use, and then reality testing, which is used in a lot of papers. Reality check is kind of like the colloquial term. Not really like the clinical term that's really used. Reality testing or state testing are typically the the terms that are used the most. Reality checking is and that's in the clinical sense, and the reality checking is what's used in like the colloquial sense. It's
Yeah.
like the secondhand slang term. I wouldn't know if I call it slang. I call it like a translation maybe, or like someone saw state test or reality. Someone
Yeah,
probably
like a
saw reality
reiteration.
test, and then like they saw it and like they said reality check, because you see like, oh, maybe that person should do a reality check, like they're way out of line, or they're completely out of whack with like the norms, and like
Yeah.
they're doing something completely crazy or really entitled or really wrong. That person needs a reality check. That's like the colloquial reality check, what that typically means in like the typical parlance outside of lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
uh, I will say, when because I'm really good at ranting too. My grandfather was good at going on real long stories. My father is an expert. I learned it from the best. And so, so to the point, one of the things with state tests is it is possible to overdo them. Actually, there's several things. One is
Yeah.
it's possible to overdo them. Two, it's possible to trick yourself out of lucidity doing them, because state tests can fail. Most of
Mm-hmm.
them, and this is actually another valid thing, most of them work purely on dream control. And so you might, be questioning something, but you might think, oh, well, what if I am awake? And then you get a state test result that shows you're awake right in the middle of a dream.
That's what I do too, as a
And that
backup.
happens. That happens to
It
people.
happens to me, yeah.
Also, the only time I've ever done more than one state test in a dream is when I've actually just been not confident, when I've been
Mm-hmm.
anxious and not actually confident in lucidity, and that has its own problems. That has,
True.
because it's one thing, when you're thinking about, oh, well, I don't want to do something that's physically dangerous all awake. But on the other hand, noticing that you're in a building that doesn't exist in the real world is a pretty good indicator that you're not actually awake, in my view.
Yeah,
You don't
for
really need to
sure.
hold your nose and breathe when you notice you're in a building that doesn't exist. Um, and I kind of see, because you can trick yourself out of it, but I would say the other thing I just wanted to say is, in terms of habits, there are good habits and bad habits, and the most common interpretation, and this is actually interpretation that people, I think, like you, don't mean this, but there are other people who misinterpret this and they say this. If you're making a reality check or a state test a habit, there's a really bad way to do it, and that is spamming it constantly, because that tends to result in mindlessness.
Yes,
And
big time.
mindlessness and state tests are exact
Useless.
opposites.
Yeah.
The point of a state test is critical thinking and present moment awareness.
Yeah,
You need both of those.
that's true. Yeah, I tell people that a lot. Like, this is why your reality checks aren't working. If you're gonna do them right. They gotta be
Mhm.
mindful. And it's not about the state test reality check themselves. I like the word reality check. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's funny how language can
Yeah,
really adapt, like
it can. It can.
but it's not about the test itself, it's about the thought process behind it, like you said, and
Yeah.
it does become second nature. But for beginners, you want to just really just be obvious with it, and do two as a backup just in
Yeah.
case.
And also a few quality ones are worth a bunch of bad ones.
Yes, big time. Quality over quantity is the biggest thing I say when it comes to
Hmm.
reality checks. I say
And
that
then
like
like
all
the one thing is, like, because I'm an opportunist, I like to um get the most bites out of the apple possible. And there are actually scientific studies that have looked at just state testing by itself as a technique, and then compared it to things like, say,
the time.
mild and wake back to bed and SSLD with wake back to bed. I don't know if you've seen this, but I'm specifically citing here, there was like an international dream study in like 2020 and 2021 that cited a few different studies, and they also cited one where they had people do mild wake back to bed, SSLD wake back to bed. They tried to get people to do a combination of mild and
Oh
SSLD with
yeah,
way
is that
back to bed.
the Dr. Aspie study, I think?
I don't remember the name. And then they also tried to get people to do reality testing plus mild and wake back to bed, and
Yeah.
reality testing plus SSLD and wake back to bed. And there was no difference in the groups that did reality testing versus the groups that didn't do reality testing, and the mild and wake back to bed, SSLD, wake back to bed groups, for example. And so what they
Mm.
showed is, especially over the short term, that reality testing tends to be not as effective as other techniques like mild and SSLD, especially when those are
Yeah.
done with wake back to beds, because those are when they're most effective. And that's what that study kind of showed. And so I definitely don't recommend just doing them by themselves. Like, they're useful
100%.
as a
Yeah.
beginner. They're useful for critical thinking, but like, definitely, paired with other practices. I use the specific terminology, part of a broader induction strategy. That's like the
Yeah,
specific
it
term I
kind of
use.
works on the underlying skills you need
Hmm.
for lucidity, kind of like the perspective memory thing, but
Hmm.
that alone isn't Like it won't
Mhm.
necessarily be more likely to get you lucid alone. So I
Yeah,
definitely, you have to build your own practice. You have to experiment, try techniques,
it did.
actually give it patience. Like that's a big thing is people don't have
The
patience.
patience. We live in a world of Gen Z instant
Yeah.
gratification.
Yep.
Shout out to all you Gen Zers here. Those of you who are strong enough to overcome the instant gratification. I salute all of you.
Yeah, because I know it's frustrating. Like, I mean, I've always lucid dreamed, so I've never been there, but I help a lot of people who do get frustrated, and you got to stay motivated, and you can do it.
Mhm.
Like everybody totally can learn.
Mhm. It goes back to when we were talking about like misconceptions earlier. One of the other common misconceptions about lucid dreaming is that lucid dreaming techniques are a recipe for success versus things that you learn and develop over time.
Hmm.
People
Yeah,
people people treat it as, oh, I do
agreed.
this tonight and I get a lucid dream. You're
Yeah,
following a recipe. You're following
exactly.
a set of
I
steps, and you think,
compare
oh,
it to go to the gym, going to the gym.
yeah,
You can't work out once and lift some weights and expect to have
I
muscles.
I
You
I
got to go
can
every day for at least six
yeah.
months.
I compare it to like sports. I compare it to
Yeah,
other skills. Because
exactly.
any
Learnable
skill, mental or
skills.
physical, that you learn, how do you
Hmm.
develop it? You develop it through consistent practice. And
Yep.
I treat each technique like a separate skill. And so I think I made a
Yeah.
comment. I've made the comment before, but it's like, oh, you're trying to become, a starter on the football team, but you're also playing basketball, hockey, rugby, tennis, you know, all you're playing six other sports every other day of the week, and you're not practicing football more than one day a week, and you're throwing all this other stuff in with it. You're not really getting better at this, and so you're not really going to be sure what your potential is because you're not putting in the effort with each method to actually get better at it. It's one thing if you want to find out, like, okay, which one do you feel more comfortable with doing, but once you decide on something to do, you do it consistently before you switch techniques. You don't I was talking to somebody, say, like, there's someone on YouTube, for example. ELD uploaded yesterday, and I was going through comments, and he uploaded his best tutorial ever actually yesterday.
I like
Shout
that.
out to
Yeah.
that. And I was going through comments and talking to people, and there's one guy said, I've never gotten lucid with techniques. And then it comes out, I was asking him like what he's done. He's like, well, I practiced something like, a couple of times, and, didn't get results. And then I basically replied to that and was like, that's like trying to play on the varsity football team by watching one football game.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
People just like don't get that it's not like, oh, I can do this
Mhm.
tonight. Like it
Yeah.
maybe you can, but
Maybe
don't
you can.
expect that. No
You can
expectations.
you can also go down to your local Walgreens, buy a lottery ticket, and win the Mega Millions jackpot and get $500 million. You
Right.
could also do that.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Good analogy.
There is a
Yeah, it
chance. There
takes some
is
time.
there is a chance you would be one lucky devil if you
Even
actually
for
won.
me as a natural
Yep.
lucid dreamer, like when I started trying to induce it, it wasn't just like easy one night thing. I had to practice,
Mhm.
and in order to increase my frequency of lucid dreams, it took me a while, like a
Yeah.
really long time. So yeah, and the more I'm into it, the more I have lucid dreams. If I just were to stop doing the podcast and stop streaming or researching or caring about it, I would stop having lucid dreams as often. So
Exactly. I can vouch the same way. It took me 10 months of consistent practice until I actually got night lucid. I was getting around 7 a week, but it was like inconsistent. I was getting like a couple of short ones here, a couple short ones there, and a couple short ones there with like days in between. But when I actually started getting like consistent nightly lucid and getting that was 10 months of consistent practice just to get there for the first time. And I've had it fluctuate. When I'm more stressed out, it goes down a bit. When I'm busy, or not getting as good sleep, there are a lot of things that can affect that, but it's a lot of consistent practice and effort, and it still takes practice to maintain it. And it's because it's a skill set. It's something that's sort of developed over time, and also there are some really effective techniques, but like some things are going to work better for other people than other techniques, so it's
yes.
never really good to judge your success by someone else. I got my first lucid dream in 14 days. It could take you 14 days, it could take you 4 days, it could take you 1 day, it could take you 4 months. Like,
Yeah, everyone's different. There's
it's
so many
yeah.
factors.
So
But
when
what's
yeah,
important is the consistency and the
absolutely.
internal driven, the internal motivation too. Like, that's where
Yeah.
the community comes into because you stay inspired, you
Mhm.
don't give up. That helped me too.
There's a quote from Winston Churchill. I've quoted it before on Reddit. I've quoted it before on Discord, but I've also heard it said, and I like to go the voice and go, "Never give in. Never, never, never."
Yeah,
Yes, so applicable though.
that's funny.
It is. It is funny, but it's applicable.
It
It
is,
makes sense
yeah.
when you're learning something. Perseverance. That's what that means. It means even in the face of adversity. I mean, think about when Churchill said that. He said that in response to there was World War II, but also like the Soviet Union, and Churchill had to lead Great Britain through its darkest hour. I mean, that's the whole, like, the movie The Darkest Hour. You have your ally across the ocean, you have the whole continent controlled by the Axis. You're facing imminent conquering of your own country, and you're at the darkest point in your history, and you don't give in. You persevere through the hardest times. 1940 for Great Britain was the roughest time for that country, and they persevered. And so, yeah, Churchill's lesson is one of perseverance. It's one of strength in the face of adversity. That is what that teaches.
Yeah, I like that for sure.
Hmm. And I think that's something that anyone can learn. Just because you haven't succeeded with something yet doesn't mean you're incapable of doing it. There is a big difference between like, people always say, well, I've never done this inside a dream before. Or I've never done this, like, it's intention inside a dream before. Is like, well, before you were 12, you probably never drove a car before either.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
I try to get rid of limiting beliefs right
Hmm.
away from people. Like, don't tell me it's hard. Don't tell me you can't do it. Don't tell me it's impossible for you.
Hmm.
Like, not to say it's not hard, but you can do it. Like, and your belief is going to make it harder for you for sure. If you think you suck at this or
Yeah.
that or whatever, it's going to make it harder.
I
So
always
just eliminate
Yeah,
it.
I started saying this like a month ago, but it's so true. But in dreams, I tell people, in dreams, your perceived limitations are that in its most literal form, perceived limitations. You create them there, and they exist because you perceive them as being limitations.
Yeah, exactly. And
Hmm.
some people's limiting beliefs are really hard to break. Like,
I know.
it's so hard. It's very
It
frustrating, but
it
that's what
took
we
me
signed up
it
for.
took me 6 months to break the association of getting lucid with dreams ending. It took me 6 months to deal with that when I
Oh,
first
wow.
started.
Yeah.
And here's how it started. I can tell you exactly how it happened too. So just like most people, I started by getting lucid near to the end of dreams. Actually, in my first lucid dream was right at the end. My second one, it ended in a false awakening, but I kind of counted the lucid part ending as the end of the dream itself. And so when I started measuring my lucid dreams, I was underselling how long I was actually dreaming and not counting the whole dream time, just the lucid time. And so I ended up associating getting lucid with having really short dreams and waking up quickly. And then I also got to a point where I realized that I was getting, like, anxious over waking up quickly. And that took me it took me
Yeah.
6 months to deal with. It was around April to May of 2021. Now, for context, I started in October of 2020. And it was around April of 2021 when I started finally breaking this. And some of the best advice I kind of got was really, because some of those things can be hard to break, but
Mhm.
one of the best things was basically, why is it so important? Why is it such a big deal? Why is it important to worry about waking up? Like, what, there are ways you can work around that. And so one of the things I was kind of taught to do was not really care about waking up and to, like, act in the dream. Now, instead of rushing around being really frantic, just don't do anything at all. And, like, I was even told, like, lay down like you're going to sleep, just don't do anything. And then also there's DEILD, because you have the option where you can try to re-enter that dream when you wake up. So there are tools you can use. And so if waking up all of a sudden isn't as important in that context, it's not something to worry about. And it's not something to worry about, you're not really thinking about it much, and you're not really thinking about it, you're not really
Mhm.
associating with it, and that problem tends to go away. And it has, for the most part. I will say, my losses are still on the short end for a lot of people, like 5 to 10 minutes, but I'll take 5 minutes over 30 seconds any day.
That's true.
That's
Yeah.
an increase. That's an increase of that's an increase of 500%.
It's
No,
pretty good.
no, that's an increase of 1,000%, actually.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's some
Because
good
it's
math right
it's
there.
yeah, it's
That
or
happens to
so
me
5 to
still
1,000. Yeah.
sometimes. 5,000. Yeah, it happens to me
Mhm.
sometimes. If the more I focus on, like, once I start to stress out in the dream, like, and that's a limiting belief too, is if I think I'm stressed, then I start to worry about waking up. And if I think about my
Yes.
body or worry about what my body's doing, I just have to cut that off and say, forget my body. I'm fine. Let me focus on the
Mhm.
dream, focus on my dream body, do some
Yes.
grounding or whatever. But it still gets to me sometimes if I feel like I'm running out of
Yeah.
time. But staying
And
calm is really just
and
helpful.
that's why I really have a problem with some of the common misconceptions out there, because what you have in this situations are what I like to call self-fulfilling prophecies. You're dealing with your own perception, as LaBerge says, dreaming is perception unconstrained by sensory input, and you're dealing with how you perceive the world around you, and you've been told by other people that if you do this certain thing, you're going to wake up, or if you don't do this thing, you're going to wake up. That is really harmful. Not
Yeah.
a fan of that at all.
Oh, that makes it so much worse. But I
It
always try
does,
to
and it's
eliminate
really
those
hard to
spread.
break those things if you started
Yeah.
getting into that, and
If you
so those.
believe it really hard, because
Yeah.
you think these people are experts and you're like, oh, I can't do this in a dream. I can't do that.
Mhm.
All that is bullshit. Do whatever you want and
Yeah.
explore.
I made, like, a Snow White joke about the whole mirror thing. I go, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, show me old and gray and bald." Yeah.
That's
Not that
funny.
I'd look any different, but at least to me anyway. I can honestly say I've never looked in a mirror in a dream. I mean, like, I've
Oh, I
never seen
have.
one.
I actually did it the other day, and I was like changing my appearance in the mirror. Like every time I would like squint my face, my like facial features would rearrange like Picasso, and it
Are
would
you
just I kept like jumbling it up
are
and
you
like
familiar
randomizing it.
are you familiar with any of the Harry Potter characters?
Yeah, I'm familiar. I
Are
don't
you
like.
familiar with Nymphadora Tonks?
Let me look him up real quick.
Her.
Her. Oh, see, I don't know.
Nymphadora Tonks.
Oh yeah, I see
Alright,
her.
she is a metamorph magus. And literally, she does in Order of the Phoenix exactly what you were just talking about. She's looking in the mirror and she's like squinting and focusing and changing her facial features and her appearance because she can do that at will.
That's cool.
And
Yeah,
so
that's
that's,
basically what I was
that's
doing.
that's like her whole thing. Yes, that's literally what you were doing.
That's funny. I have to look at that scene now. I've seen that
Yes.
movie, but I don't remember any
It's
details.
it's better in the books, like because Harry's never seen one, and she's talking
Okay.
about her appearance and kind of like mumbling to herself, and then she's looking in his wardrobe mirror, and then she just changes her hair from like brown to bubblegum pink or something.
That's cool. Yeah, that's what I was
It's
doing. And the other
yeah.
time I looked in a mirror, I was like, I didn't do this intentionally. I just looked in a mirror and I was like Paul McCartney or some dude.
Oh Lord,
I thought looked like
Paul
Paul
McCartney.
McCartney.
Yeah.
And I
You,
just
did
kept
you
going about my business.
did your music sell as well?
No, it wasn't anything music related. I just kept
I
going about my
I
business.
know, but that's like
And another
that's
funny
all
thing
of it.
about that dream, though, is I was kind of
Yeah.
walking around, like, just couldn't really think of what to do. There was like a German Shepherd in the dream, and I asked him, "How can I make $1 million?" And he just asked me the exact same question back, like big projection, like, "How could I make $1 million?" I was like, "You were supposed to tell me."
Yeah, it'd be really funny. Yeah, I would have that same response as a joke, like, funny. I've been asking that question to myself. If you find the answer, please let me know.
I know exactly.
Yeah, I'd love to know. Yeah, but the other one is, of course, telling dream characters dream. I do that all the
I do
time.
that too,
I
and
tell my dream
sometimes they're
characters
cool
I'm
with it.
dreaming all the time.
A lot of times they'll teach me things. They'll have fun with me, especially if it's like my family or something.
Yeah. It's
I
it's
love
all
doing
about
that.
it's all about your perception of it. And here's a funny thing. I was actually doing mild with that specific thing in mind last night, and then I actually did it, and so I had a really good carryover of attention. Solidly. I did it in yeah, I did it in two of my dreams, but yeah, I have my dream characters help me avoid some of the like associations that I've had that get in my way, and it's really useful. And so I've done that with different dream characters. Um, and it's not any it's really kind of what you make of it. And I think this is where we can kind of into the discussion of what you think is in your dreams, because this is a discussion we've had a little bit sort of like hinted at, and we've talked about a little bit. But in my mindset, I kind of see the dream characters as part of me, in the sense that, you know, when I perceive my dad in the car, he doesn't act like himself. He acts like how I would perceive him by my own biases,
Mhm.
not by how he actually behaves in real life. He acts like my own biases of how I might think he would act in a certain situation. My mother, I think my mother acts pretty close, but in this case, I was actually controlling a little bit of the reaction, because I was having her kind of stand in as a supporting character for things I was trying to do specifically, and so she wasn't necessarily acting like herself either, but in a different context than how like my dad was acting. But I kind of see that as a reflection of myself, and as like
Yeah.
how I perceive that person will interact. Like, just like I don't see a difference between how dream characters behave in the dream and how the ground under my feet behaves. Like, I don't see the difference, because I see that all as part of one construct, all part of my perception of that experience. There's a reason
Yeah.
that the concrete of my driveway and the garage floor feel the way they do. It's because that's what I'm used to, and that's how I perceive them. And then I know we've had a little bit of discussion before on your perspective on what you think dreams are, and I know it's a little different than mine as
It's
well.
interesting though.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I can still tell in the back of my head, like when I'm controlling, like I can kind of feel it, even though I feel like, it's mostly obviously subconscious perceptions. And sometimes I can notice it a lot of times, like, oh, I kind of feel that in the back of my head, felt or thought something that, like created that reaction out of the dream. And sometimes it is pretty accurate for like my dream characters and how they are in real life. I would say it just depends
I
on the
think it
dream.
really depends on the person and depends on the context.
Yeah.
The context is kind of important, because I've had them behave in certain ways. Like the reason why I've had my dad behave in certain ways is because I've had the idea of, well, certain, I've had the idea, like, I didn't tell anyone in my family about lucid dreaming because I didn't think they'd react to it really well, or I didn't think they would understand it because it's something they've never heard of. Like, in particular, I didn't know what it was either, and so I wanted to make sure I understood it before I told anyone. And I kind of had this perception, an inaccurate one, that it react like that. If I told my dad or my mom about it, that they react a certain way. And so when my dad sometimes in my dreams reflects how my own personal bias of how
Mm.
I think he would react, not how he actually would react in real life. And
Yeah,
it's
for
it's it's a
sure.
completely different thing, and I can recognize the difference. And so that kind of affects how I perceive him in dreams sometimes. But other people, like my best friend, kind of react how he reacts. My mother's pretty much acted like how she reacts. My cat acts like how she would react. Seeing as she's dead, may she rest in peace. Lucid dreams are the only place I've been able to see her, and she's awesome. It's always good to have a nice dream
That is
reminder
sweet.
of my cat. It's those are always nice dreams when I'm able to pet my cat that I haven't pet in 2 years. But
Yeah,
yeah, dream characters, a lot of them are not named. A lot of just random people I just run into somewhere in
same. Yeah.
some random location, and they aren't typically named, or if they are, the name is just one of those little details that gets missed. But it's usually like the context is usually, say, like a waiter at a restaurant that you don't know the name of, or they don't tell you their name, kind of deal. Like, you're out to eat somewhere, like that kind of a context. You're in a crowd of people, or you're in with a group of people, and these aren't specific people that you know. Like, for example, the captain of the cruise ship that I was on, I had a Celebrity Apex dream. By the way, I'm going on the Celebrity Apex in December. That's why I've been dreaming about it so much.
Oh, nice.
um, they actually talk about, in some studies, they talked about dreaming of future events in terms of the context of dreaming about things that you are planning to do later, and like the how far out those events are. I'd say for me, when something I'm really looking forward to, I'll dream about it a lot, months in advance, a long time in advance. I think I dreamed about the Dream Conference many times, months in advance before I actually went. I
Do you
had
ever like
dreams
have
about
like
that.
stress dreams where you feel like you missed something important?
I
Like
think I
that
had
happens to
I
me a
think
lot.
I think I had a couple of stress dreams, and then I also had like a couple of just fun dreams of, like, I was
Yeah,
meeting, like, well, Dr. LaVerge, and I was meeting other people, and I was just
that's
out
cool.
there hanging out with people and talking to people, or I was on planes flying there, or I was, like in this case, all the cruise ship dreams, I'm on the ship and I'm just chilling in the cabin, or I'm in a restaurant. Now, one of them I caused to get invaded by a group of mercenaries, but that's why I ran to the bridge and stole an all access key card and then went and hid on the balcony somewhere. But yeah.
That's crazy. It's so
Yeah.
fascinating. Like, we're gonna have to do this when I have so many things to ask you too about, like, like if you can see in your dreams what that's like. Like,
I can tell you what that's like right now. Actually, that's a question I get asked at
probably a lot. I
least twice a
know.
day, I think, on Discord. People ask me a lot of those questions. Like, there's some questions I've been asked a lot. Basically, so, and this is really interesting. So the context for this, obviously, I had some memory of sight, like we talked about earlier, and but that was just before we started. But I had some memory of sight, so I couldn't read small print even under a magnifying glass with prescription glasses in first grade. That was when my sight was at its best, but I could read like large print back then. But I'm good at visualizing, and I've been a visualizer for a long time. Think of someone with aphantasia who can see perfectly but can't visualize. I'm the exact opposite of them. I can't see well at all, but I can visualize really well. And I do this a lot during the week, like when I'm awake. I actually am visualizing this web page that I'm scrolling through, and when I am reading something, I'm sort of visualizing not all the words, but some of them, and they're visualized in Braille. Actually, I'm actually
Interesting.
visualizing text in Braille in my mind's eye,
Yeah, I guess your
and I
perception plays a role there too.
that is
Because if you
correct.
haven't seen
I've been
anything,
reading. I haven't read print text since a long time ago, and I've been reading Braille since I was 3 years old,
mhm,
and so that is print to me. That is
makes
what
sense.
text looks like.
Yeah,
I can force myself to imagine the shape of actual letters. However, Braille is the default,
yeah.
and
Interesting.
I can visualize it clear as day. No effort required. And I did. So here's the thing: I've been doing this for at least a decade. I've been doing this
Yeah.
for a long, long time. probably for 15, 16 years. I've been doing this forever. Here's the thing though. I didn't notice that I've been doing this subconsciously for so long until about a year and a half ago. I was walking around outside and it's like, hey, I'm visualizing the outside where I'm walking. And I discovered the purpose for my waking visualization. I trust me, this is all relevant to what I see in dreams. But I was discovering the purpose of it. And my going theory, and I would love to see if there was a way to have this tested, but my going theory is that my occipital lobe, my visual cortex, has basically been repurposed as a means of associating other data.
That
Because
makes a lot of sense.
I have visualization based mental maps of so much in my head. I can visualize, like, example, I visualize specific parts of text of a message and it associates with what the person says. It associates with that message. I can pull that up and go, that's what this person said, or this is the context. I can visualize a location and people I was with, and I can call up through auditories, I can call up by themselves. Tactiles, I visualize, and then I call up the tactile sensation of the thing I'm visualizing while I visualize. For example, I'm visualizing right now sitting on an Airbus A321 seat 19C on American Airlines Flight 584, which is what I took to Tucson. And if I'm visualizing the tray table in front of me, I can visualize the texture of what it felt like. And I can visualize the placement of the USB ports, which on the left side of the airplane are up above the actual tray table and on the left side. And I can visualize the placement of that with a little like screw underneath it that could come out probably. And I can
Yeah.
visualize that and what it tactily feels like by visualizing the points on it. And then I can also associate the context. Okay, so I'm in an Airbus A321. The bathroom's in row 23. It's 5 rows behind me. The closest exit's in row 24. It's 6 rows behind me on the left side. Like I have all these details in my mind that are associated with this visualization. Also, there's the time and date. Okay, it's Saturday, July 16th, 2022. It's about like 2:50 in the afternoon, leaving Dallas Fort Worth. Or this was like 1:50 in the afternoon, I think. You know, I'm going to Tucson. The flight was delayed about 30 minutes, which I was happy for because I wanted extra time to connect. And so I have all these details of that,
Yeah.
and then people I'm sitting next to, where they came from. See, I can call all this up by visualizing where I sat on the airplane.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's just fascinating to me how we all have so many different ways to perceive data, and our brains work in different ways to just,
Mm-hmm.
make an image or feelings for that. So that's really cool. And now it's starting to make more sense.
Yeah, so to bring it into dreams, I just visualize the same way in dreams like I do with the wake when I'm
Yeah.
awake. Sometimes I can see a little bit better in dreams. I usually don't pay attention to it too much, but sometimes like I can look and see like say a light coming off a person and that light and like that thing moving in a way that I wouldn't actually be able to see that in that same way while awake, or like the shade or outline of like a smartboard at the front of the room that I wouldn't actually be able to see. I can just tell where light's coming from. I can't tell anything else. And it wasn't like a bright light in dreams, or like I can see like vague outlines and shapes, just like when I visualize. I can visualize vague outlines and shapes. I can't actually see them, but in dreams, it's the same quality. But it's not something I really notice because it's the exact same as my waking visualizations. The only times it's any more clear than waking visualization if it's based on specific memory. For example, if I'm imagining like when I used to play Harry Potter in the Order of the Phoenix, for example, or on that, or some of those games, when I could see a little bit of more, I could never see colors too well, but I could see different outlines and different shapes and different things, and I could visualize those. But that's based on very specific memories of things that I did see at one point when I was younger. And so that's basically how it works in my dreams. It's
Interesting. Yeah,
mostly
that
auditory
makes
and
sense.
tactile.
I would have guessed that, honestly.
Mhm.
That's really cool. That's fascinating. Yeah.
Mhm. So it's a very long answer. I don't usually give that full length answer, but just it's
Yeah,
an
no, it's
intriguing one
okay.
because that's my going theory for how my brain works. I have no way of confirming this, but it's logical based on the fact that when I visualize something, it's always associated with some other form of information, and it seems to be a way for me to associate with dates, events, people, places, things I did, and mental maps, which I have. And I don't really mean to brag in a sense, but I have a really high level mental mapping capability. I map out any building I go in. I learn my way around it very quickly. The more enclosed and narrow the space, the easier it is to learn. The easier I pick it up.
Yeah, it makes sense that your other senses have to, help you out
Mhm.
in terms of that.
And I do that everywhere I go. And even if I haven't been somewhere for a while, a good example of this is the National Federation of the Blind headquarters in Baltimore, Maryland. I visited the NFB headquarters for the first time when I was in 6th grade in September of 2008. For one weekend with my father. We flew up on a Thursday. I took me out of class early. It was a special thing. I forget the whole purpose of that one, but it was like it was a short week, and we flew out to Baltimore together. He was doing a parents thing, I was doing a students thing. We were in different rooms, and we stayed there. All of it was on the fourth floor, on the top floor of the Jernigan Institute building, and we kind of had a couple things that we did as a group, and it was fun. Then the next time I went up there, 3 years later, it was the summer of 2011. It was right before I went into ninth grade, and I hadn't been there in 3 years. And I was only there for 3 days, and I never got to roam the facility on my own, except for like I think 30 minutes on the last day when I kind of snuck out in the morning because I'm a sneaky little bastard. But what can I say? Okay, so here I am. I show back up, and I know my way around the building. I know where things are. I know where the rooms I stayed in 3 years ago was. And I hadn't touched that building in 3 years.
That's definitely brag worthy, because I can see and I can't even do that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that's just how I map things. That's how I win my way around.
Sense. Yeah, you have to.
The best part was the really funny one. Actually, here's the thing was I was already 18 at the time that this happened. However, due to like legal liability issues, they still have to keep track of you as it's a group thing. And I actually, because I like to explore on my own, and they don't like that. They like everyone to be congregated together.
Yeah.
And so I knew where everything was in the building. This was actually really funny. I snuck out and just started walking around and just exploring. And then I accidentally locked myself out of behind a door that had a code on it to get back into the fourth floor hallway, and I didn't know it. And then someone had to let me in. I was only locked out for a couple minutes. Someone let me in, but they actually started paging my name over the intercom.
Oh, that's awesome.
They were looking for me.
Oh, that's funny.
But the funnier part was on the very last day, because I decided to sneak around again on the last day because we were about to fly home and I had nothing to do for like 2.5 hours. I'm like, I'm not going to sit there for 2 hours. And so I just started sneaking around, and they actually didn't notice me that time. They left the room I was in without accounting for everyone in the room. And so I was left alone. And so I just like slipped out a different door. And then I was sneaking around part of the building, and I had to evade a group of people that was leaving to go to the airport ahead of mine. I was just like watching them. It was funny. I'm a little sneak. But anyway, I like to explore. I have a thirst for exploration. I like to navigate around. Thank you, Voidway. Have a good day. But
yeah, I relate.
I have that kind of adventure spirit. That's why I jumped out of an airplane twice.
Yeah, I've done it once. I don't know if I would do it again. It was fun. Yeah, I liked it. That's cool. Yeah, I think I relate to you a lot on that. I love exploring and trying new things. A little bit of adrenaline junkie sometimes.
It depends on the thing. I'm a big roller coaster nut. I'll tell you. I can tell you. There are certain things I can tell you about roller coasters that are a specific incidents that in private that I can't tell you about in public because it'll tell people too much about where I live.
Gotcha. Yeah, we can talk about it later for sure.
But yeah, I'm an adrenaline junkie for sure. I am the only person on the airplane who has this like crap eating grin on their face whenever it hits turbulence.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, it doesn't scare me that much, but
I do because I can't feel anything else when we're flying.
Oh, that's
and
true.
I like to get a feel for the speed of the aircraft and for its motion. I like to get a feel for it because I can't feel anything else. Also, I know that I know the level of tolerances these airplanes have.
Yeah,
I know that that turbulence that we would likely hit, even bumpy turbulence, isn't anything close to serious enough to actually cause damage to the airplane. And I'm very confident. I have enough aviation knowledge that I'm very confident and comfortable hitting turbulence in a plane, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I wouldn't say I enjoy it, but I don't mind it because planes are safer than cars, honestly.
I was in DC in January, and I flew home, and we were delayed on the ground for 30 minutes because of weather. And the pilot kept saying there's going to be a lot of turbulence. So they're going to keep the fast seatbelts on. It's going to be a bumpy flight. And then there was hardly any turbulence. And I kept I wanted to talk to him, go like, hey, you guys overpromised and underdelivered.
That's funny. You should have said that. It's funny that we're talking about this because I actually had an airplane crash dream last night. And I was like, It was kind of crazy. I'm going to tell you about it now that we're into it.
Yeah.
It was like turbulence, but it wasn't fun because the plane was crashing and like my ex, who used to be a pilot, was driving. So I don't know if that's symbolic in some way, but it started off that way. But the plane crashed, I died. And then I was like just roaming around, watching everybody's like reaction process and everything. And I recently watched this movie called Into the Void, which is kind of about that. So, there's some data processing there, but it was really kind of sad. I was like, damn, I'm dead. Like that sucks.
I've had dreams about planes and I was plane crashes, but in the case where the plane crashed, I was actually flying it, like, so at
Yeah.
least I had skin in the game. But and it was cool because in this stream, I actually like rewound time, and so I was on a
That's
plane,
cool.
and this was actually really interesting. So I was on a like an A320. I was flying into Rochester, New York for some reason because apparently that's a place you connect from the southeast to go to the southwest United States. And as the plane was like touching down, I could somehow see the runway outline through the tray table. And as the plane touched down, the scene. This is all non-lucid. I had just started learning lucid dreaming like a month before this. And as the plane touched down, it's like cuts to me in a fighter jet that's also touching down, and then I'm going to try to hit the reversers because I know about airplane reversers and slow the plane down. But instead, I don't quite get the reversers out, and I put the throttle up, and then it's like a cut scene, and it cuts to me and my parents under the plane, and like the jet comes like screaming down the taxiway and like clips the wing of the airplane.
Oh
And
my
then the
God.
funny part was my parents were blaming me for it. That was the funny
Wow.
part. And then after that happened, the whole scene just rewound, and we're back on the plane, and we were touching down again. And then that time, I actually got the reversers out and stopped the airplane.
Was that a conscious decision to rewind?
No, it was not.
Interesting.
It's really interesting because here's the thing: in my dreams, a lot of times when there's tension in my dreams, it gets resolved in the dream itself. I don't really
That's
have
good.
like typical nightmares in that sense. That unresolved tension usually doesn't stay unresolved for very long in my dreams. It gets resolved. That's just one scenario where time has replayed in a way to resolve something or to fix something or change something without really consciously doing it.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's cool. It's kind
Mhm.
of like again one of those subconscious thought processes of like, oh, I don't like that. Let
Mhm.
me fix it. That happens to me, and
Exactly.
sometimes it's intentional though. I'm
And
like,
it's
I
so
don't like that.
casual too. It's so casual.
Yeah.
There's nothing like deliberate or delayed or like or deliberated about
Hmm.
it. It's just like, oh, okay, we'll just rewind time
Redo.
and fix
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's almost like that's normal. So interesting how we
Yeah.
can do that. Like human consciousness, it just blows my mind every day.
It's
Like, how
nice.
is that even possible?
It is amazing. Of course, the most powerful organic computer that we have at the moment.
Hmm.
But there's so much we're still learning, and I think the more that we learn, the more questions we're gonna have, because that's how science works. The more you
Yep.
learn about something, the more questions about it you open up, the more you want to dive in and learn. And there's so many concepts out there. I would love to find a way to have that theory tested about how I visualize and think about things. And like, I don't know if there's even a way to test that, but I definitely think that I'm using my visual cortex now just to translate and associate with other information. It's being adapted to serve a different function than what it typically is meant for. It's interesting.
Hmm. Love it.
So do you have any questions for me about my lucid dreaming experience?
Yeah, I do. I could ask questions. Like, okay, so let me think. Hmm. So what techniques when you first started out, like what it would work best for you?
Well, I wasn't really actually doing techniques in the right way when I started out. I was blundering my way through it for the first couple of weeks. Um, and like there was one night in particular where because I didn't know better, I was trying to force myself to stay still for 2 hours. That didn't go very well. Um, and it I was again 14 days, 13 nights. I had my first lucid dream, and then I had one a night later, and it was a couple days after that that I started doing mild. Just a couple days later, and it's what I have gotten the most consistent results with, and it's what has kept me lucid the longest, constantly. For in infinitum, basically, since I started all the way through until now. I've modified it a bit over the years. I started with like really elaborate, visualization process for setting intention, and then I kind of dwindled that back over the years. I kind of streamlined it. I started out with this like really elaborate thing that I was trying to do, and then I kind of streamlined it. I wasn't as confident in myself back then either when I started, and that's part of it
Yeah.
too. And then as I kind of got better at it, I was like, I don't necessarily need to do all this. I can cut down on some of the time that I'm spending doing this and streamline the actual process a little bit better. And that's what I ended up doing. I streamlined it further and further, and that evolved gradually over the course of months. And then I'm doing mild with either one of my dreams or a couple of my dreams before I go to bed. I don't even do it for 20 minutes. I don't need to. I can do it for a shorter amount of time. And I still got 4 lucids this morning, and I still will get one generally I don't have to practice too hard to get one. I still have to practice, but I don't have to practice that hard
Yeah.
to actually get Lucid. But
Yeah, that makes sense.
that's after 2.5 years of consistent practice.
It definitely gets easier, like the better you
Mhm.
get at it, and then you have new things you want to try, and it's just a whole new level of exploring.
Yeah,
So
I've
what kind of
done
things do you do while lucid?
well. Let's see. I do a lot of traveling. Obviously, I do that non-Lucids too.
Hmm.
I've my best form of teleporting that is perfected is Harry Potter style apparating. Basically, I it's actually really well explained in the lore in Half Blood Prince. Destination, determination, deliberation, and it just fits so well. And it's just like
Nice.
spin on your heel, turn your heel, and fixate on your destination and where you're going, and boom, you're there. Um, well, it's a little bit different than
That's a
that,
good
but I
one.
cut out the part about being squished through a tube. I cut that part out because it's not really needed.
It's your dream. You can do what you want.
Yep, exactly. So I modified it. I've also done like Star Trek transporting because that's fun. I've
Cool.
built my own starship, the Titan class supercarrier ZSS Star Horizons, and I have done a couple things there. Trying to visit it more often. I haven't spent a ton of time there, but I have a couple of persistent characters like Captain Hartley, for example, that are
Cool.
up there, and I've come up with an exact layout of the ship for several different compartments and deck layouts
That's
and
cool. Is it the same
compartment
every
zoning.
time?
It mostly is. I think a couple times there was a turbo lift like out of place here or there, maybe like not in the exact right position, but
That's cool.
everything is where I tell it to be, which is how it's
Right.
supposed to be. But I have like this whole zoning system for the ship. I haven't visited a lot of compartments. I visit the main two. I visited a conference room off the bridge, a small capture hangar on the lower deck. Not even that deck didn't even have a number. A couple of the turbo lifts, and of course the main bridge compartment and this side meta compartment I created called 100 S10 375022. I created a zoning system for the ship. There's a zone in quarter mile increments from 0 to 200 north to south, like forward to aft, and then P10 to S10 quarter mile increments from port to starboard. And so I
That's
created this
cool.
whole zoning system. So that is midship, starboard hull, deck 375, compartment number 22. And so I created
Oh,
this whole zoning system for the ship to indicate where
so
on the
intricate. I
whole.
love
Yes,
it.
I'm a detail oriented person, and so I created all these details.
Do you do this like over the course of many dreams? Like, how do you put a mental marker
Well,
for a persistent one?
I make this in my head. All this is made while awake. This is something
Okay.
I've just sort of conceptualized
Oh,
over
that makes
time
sense.
and
Duh.
developed all awake. And I came up with stats for it too, and a whole backstory and lore for the whole thing too. So it's part of an intergalactic federation. It's the flagship of the Zerdonian Defense Forces. That's where the Z designation comes um,
I love
from planet
that.
Zerdonia, part of the Intergalactic Federation of Peacekeepers. Crews of 2.5 million, 50 miles long, 5 miles wide, 500 decks high, carries
Yeah,
24 cruisers, 100 escort frigates, and 4,800 fighter craft aboard.
that's cool.
Hmm.
Wow,
So I
dude.
come up with statistics. I love numbers and just
I
like
love it.
facts and details. So I come up with all this crap. And I've even come up with arbitrary numbering, like fighter complements for each of the auxiliary ships aboard to come up with like a total task force ship
I'm gonna try
complement.
to visit your ship and bring
That's
something
funny.
back that that's on there, and you can tell me if I'm right.
Um, I guess I didn't tell you the class of ships on there. If you want to try, if you really want to do this as an experiment, okay. So there are the main carrier is a Titan class supercarrier. There are specific class names for the cruisers, the frigates, and the starfighters. If you want to try to visit, tell me one of the classes for one of those types of ships. See if you can find out.
Okay, I like a challenge. I'll try,
Hmm.
even though I know nothing about that. So it actually might be good though.
Yeah,
I'll try to
because
visit.
it's really nerdy. Also, see if you there's a specific number of what the total fleet complement is of all vessels.
Total fleet compliment. Okay, I'll get that. That might be easier number.
Actually, I don't know. You'd be surprised.
Oh, let's see how
It's
close I get. It
okay.
might be
All
fun.
right.
Dude, that's
Mhm.
really cool though. So then when you like visit the world in your dreams, is there like a certain method that you do to go to
Mostly,
that
I've
mile?
visited. I'm trying to teleport aboard, sometimes to a specific apartment, sometimes just onto the ship, or I'm calling the ship. There was one memorable time I did it like last year where I was flying with someone. I remember I wanted to go up there, and I sort of phase teleported us onto the zone 0500. So the bridge zone at the forward end of the ship in the corridors outside of the main bridge. And the ship was at like red alert. There were people crammed in the hallways where there shouldn't be anyone. and I basically associated with using like an intercom like in Star Trek, and I basically intercom to the bridge, and a lieutenant responded, so the captain wasn't even on the bridge, and I was like, what the hell's going on? And I was trying to push my way through people to get to the bridge to find out what the hell was going on my ship, and I ended up waking up before I reached the bridge. It was
Oh my
funny
God.
though.
Hopefully they're
Yeah.
good over there. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it was pretty funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really interesting
I was
though.
like, oh, yeah, I'm just gonna take the stream character, take him on a tour of my ship, and it's like, oh, we get there in the middle of this emergency going on.
That's funny.
Oh,
Wow.
GTA V, I made it to the stream.
Oh
Hello.
yay. Yeah, I need to start. I'm going to start playing around with some persistent worlds too, because I've done it before.
It's
But
fun.
it is fun, especially when it's things about that you love or that you aspire to do, or movies that you love and things like that. Like it's just one of the really fun things of lucid dreaming, and especially like it's just it's just like being in a different world like that. That's crazy to me.
It's a lot of fun, honestly. I really enjoy it. I have a passion just for the subject matter in general, for teaching the subject, for doing it, for enjoying it. Um, and it's a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
it's just the whole concept and all the things that can be done. It's so creative, even when you're not actually trying to create something. One of my best dreams, for example, was lucid dream number 153, which took place in, if I remember correctly, early May of 2021. So a long time ago, because I'm 27 now. So that was 153. And that dream, I basically, it started out false awakening style, and my dad comes in my room and he's like, I'm telling him I'm dreaming, and he's like doubting it. And so I grab him and I yank open this door that doesn't exist in the back hall of my room, which is one of the things I started doing to break this schema I had surrounding my house, to break these associations that I couldn't change things in my house. Was
Mhm.
the first time I realized I could change something in my house is when I made a door that didn't exist. And so instead of trying to change the rooms that were already there, because I was finding that difficult, I was having trouble perceiving those rooms as changeable in the way I wanted. And so what I started doing is, all right, well, if I make this door that exists and it leads to a room that doesn't exist, I'm changing my house. So I'm already changing it. It's just now that this room doesn't have anything associated with it, it's more free to become something weird
Yeah.
that I want it to. And so I don't have any of these things associated. So in the corner, there was this elevator, and we got into this elevator, and it went up, and there was just dark outside. And so I go, okay, this elevator goes to space. And then a spaceship docked with it, and we climbed in. And climbing through it was like climbing through submarine hatches on an old diesel sub. They're like knee high. You have to climb over them, and it wasn't designed for humans. And so that was the backstory. And so I am fully aware that I'm in a dream here, and I'm half directing and half observing as I'm walking along. And so we walk through and we make a left turn. We're heading towards the front of the ship, and I'm pointing out, okay, well, there's astrometrics on the left, there's engineering on the right, and we're walking up to the front of the ship, and I'm like, well, I don't like one level ships, so I'm just going to make a bridge tower that's completely unnecessary just because I want to. And I'm like just slightly editing certain things and making it go in the direction I wanted to. And then I meet this dream character that's fully meta, fourth wall breaking because it's funny. And we're just talking about lucid dreaming, and then my dad is like weirded out by these bat creatures on the ceiling that are sentient aliens. And apparently this creature is so powerful that they don't even need a spaceship; they just have one to communicate with other people.
That's
But
cool.
it was just this really fun dream that was just
I love
funny.
that.
And
Your dreams are like movies.
and then when it finished, it was actually a really realistic representation of floating in space. Like, and not in space. We were back in my house, but I was in the hallway. But like floating in zero G, like if you're not able to reach out and touch something and push yourself along, you're kind of like stuck there in the air. You're trying to float along, and it was like a very realistic rendition of what it would actually be like to be floating in, like, say, the ISS in a hallway without being able to reach something.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, the realisticness of dreams sometimes is really fascinating. I feel like I've experienced so much that I would never get to experience in waking life, and it's satisfying for real.
Um, Joseph L. This is from Sharvaza on Dream Cafe. What do you recommend if I can't fall asleep when I wake back to bed? This is from Shirza. Well, first thing I would ask you is, one, how long into your sleep are you waking up with wake back to bed? Two, how long are you staying awake? And three, what technique are you trying to do? And four, how long are you taking before you fall back asleep? I would need context before I can actually answer that, because
Yeah.
it could be you're staying up for 30 minutes and maybe that's too long and you shouldn't stay up very long at all because you're a light sleeper like me. Maybe you're not staying up at all, and maybe this is just a fluke, and maybe there's just something going on and it'll pass. Maybe you're trying to do wild and you're just too aware, and so you're laying awake for 40 minutes. Maybe you're Maybe you're doing it like 7 hours into your sleep and you're just not tired enough to actually be able to go back to sleep. There's a lot of context that you really need to be able to answer that.
True. Yeah. Yeah. All those questions would be able to give a better answer to.
Hmm.
And sometimes I tell people like, um, just if you have to, like, do some stretching or something in the other room. Like, get out of the room. Don't just like stay in the bed,
Hmm.
not being able to go back to sleep. Sometimes, journal or read something about lucid dreaming, preferably not on your phone though. And like,
Well,
yeah,
unless
just
you're
try to,
blind.
well, yeah,
Blue
but in the
light be
case,
danged.
right, yeah. But depending, that's what I'm saying. Everybody's different. It would just
Yeah.
depend on so many factors. And I love wake back to bed, but it's not for everybody. And the other thing is too is, yeah, like you said, what time? Because I prefer to do it later in the morning hours, like 7 a.m. That's when I have the most lucid dreams.
Yeah. It also depends on like when you fell asleep and how far into your sleep.
So many
Also,
factors.
how long you stay awake is very much a subjective thing as well. Because
Yeah.
are you doing, there's the Labergian classical sleep interruption. And I specifically use the term classical sleep interruption when I describe what Laberge recommends when he talks about like the 60, 90-minute plus wake back to bed, or getting up for an hour and a half or 2 hours or more. That is very specific. That is a certain thing that I separate from what we typically talk about with wake back to beds is like, because I think the amount of time spent awake can and should be variable and subjective and should be based on how quickly you can fall back asleep. For example,
Yeah.
I'm a pretty light sleeper. If I have to get up and move around and do things, then it can take me. If I get up and have to go downstairs and back upstairs, it might take me 45 minutes to fall back asleep because I was just active. But if I get
Yeah.
up and don't do anything, I can be back asleep in 5 minutes. Like the amount of physical activity matters, how long and how quickly or how effectively you can return to sleep, all that matters.
That's
And
true.
so there's a big subjective element to that. And so when you recommend just an arbitrary time, you're not taking into account individual sleep schedules. Someone who falls asleep very quickly and has trouble like paying attention to something or doing a technique before they fall asleep, they might want to stay up for closer to 30 minutes. Maybe they can fall asleep in 2 minutes and it's not going to be that big of a deal for them.
Yeah.
Someone, however, who takes 20 minutes to fall asleep probably doesn't want to stay up for very long at all. They probably just want to do a technique and then try to go back to bed because it's going to take them a bit to get back to sleep.
That's true. And for me, I'm a light sleeper, but I fall asleep quickly, which is a funny like combination because I could sleep anywhere. I woke up at 6 in the morning. I worked out and everything, and for like an hour, I came back, still went to sleep, and had like lucid dreams, false awakenings.
Mm-hmm.
So I stay sleepy all day. I could lay down right now and take a nap. Like, and I love that though because it makes it obviously easy. But sometimes when doing techniques, I have to sit up a little bit and
Yeah.
I can't let myself lay down or I'll just knock right out. I
Well,
have to kind of be uncomfortable at
that's
first.
one thing I talk about with like mild, for example. There's a lot of people who are trying to do it laying down and they're getting really distracted. And I was like, one of the things I'll tell people is like, do it sitting up. Pay
Yeah,
attention to it, do
I
it
do
sitting
that a
up, then
lot.
lay down and go back to sleep. Also, hello Supernova, hello Pancake. Given that your name's Pancake, I would never have guessed that you were Pancake from the Discord. That never has crossed my mind. Um, but but yeah, like seriously, it is also like the how long it takes you to fall asleep is a big part of it. It's
Yeah,
part of that calculation. And how quickly, like, yeah, how you return to sleep, how effectively, how quickly you can return to sleep.
yeah,
And like, doing mild, like, I'll even sometimes I'll describe what I'm imagining, like I'll describe it out loud as I'm imagining, helps me stay focused on it, and I'll do it sitting up, and it helps me stay focused on it, so it keeps me from my thoughts from drifting as much. And then lay down and go to sleep. Oh, you just changed your YouTube name, great, thank you. Okay, this is from Sherza again, I believe. Thank you, Joseph L. All right. I do mild. Yep. And because we've talked about this before, actually. So yeah, they do mild. And yesterday I woke up an hour before my alarm. Okay. How far into your sleep? I set my alarm 5 hours after I go to sleep. Okay. So you woke up 4 hours in. Okay. So it was natural awakening, I guess. And I try to stay awake for a very short amount of time. But when I woke up, I felt very awake. Okay, this might be a one-off, or this might be like a short-term or like a fluke kind of thing. It doesn't sound like a normal thing for you if this isn't something you're used to getting. Um, Waking up very awake, honestly, it's not really like a normal. Like I kind of woke up that way today just because I was really excited after getting 4 lucid dreams. So I was just really in the mood to get up. But waking up after 4 hours of sleep, when you normally wake up to bed around 5 hours, it seems, but judging by that description. Um, and then feeling like really awake when you woke up after 4 hours of sleep. It'd be interesting to know like if there's anything going on that's maybe affecting your sleep, like anything that could possibly have kept you awake? Maybe did you consume anything before bed, like any caffeine or anything, or eat or do stuff before bed that could possibly impact your sleep? Like there are other things there. It doesn't sound like it's like a recurring phenomenon, though. It sounds like it's a short-term thing. Oh, huge GTAB. Okay. What are your thoughts on that?
What was the question again? Sorry, I was
So their
looking at my
question is
phone.
what to, how to like to fall back asleep. They were talking about,
Oh, this is
look at what Joseph L's last post. That was the context based on the previous thing we are talking about with the wake back to bed and how long it was taking them to fall asleep and when they did it. This is the context. So read this post. That was the one I read out loud. Joseph
where
L.
where did you just
It's on my watch page.
oh
Joseph L. All right, I do mild, and yesterday I woke up an hour before my alarm. I set my alarm 5 hours after I go to sleep, and I try to stay awake for a very short amount of time. But when I woke up, I felt very awake. And they woke up an hour, for context, they woke up naturally an hour before their wake back to bed alarm, and they felt really awake, like hyper awake when they woke up.
Gotcha. Yeah, if you feel, I would say if you feel hyper awake, not to get up and do too much. Like try to stay in that relaxing, same body position. Like sometimes you can still do wake back to bed without even fully getting out of bed. And it also too would depend. Like, do you normally wake up early? Because some people just normally wake up early and they're up, And if that's the case, like you kind of have to train yourself to just linger and stay sleepy for a little bit. And try to wake up for your wake back to bed. I mean, you can try to find when you're in REM sleep. Or you could try to find like earlier in the night when you might be more sleepy, when it's harder for you to actually get up.
It says, so this is 4 hours after they go to sleep. And this says a second, so they're not like completely awake, but not like really tired.
They could have been also, I don't know if they're tracking their sleep, but maybe they weren't in REM. They might have been in a lighter stage of sleep already, or like in one of those micro awakenings. That's probably what it was. You probably weren't even in REM.
Well, we have those micro awakenings all the time, but also those are usually actually a really good time to do wake back to beds. Typically, is do those natural awakenings because we have so many of them. But also, it sounds a little different than the typical micro awakening because the typical micro awakenings aren't really noticed too often, and when they are noticed, they're usually really light and they're easy to fall asleep to. Versus what this described is not being really tired after they woke up, and they're still only halfway into what should be a normal rest period, 8 hours of sleep. It's only the second time it's happened to them, and the second time, so I guess 2 times they couldn't fall back asleep. So did you not fall asleep at all for the remainder of the night? Like, were you just up for 4 hours?
And what were you doing too? Like, because if you were just watching TV like that, you kind of got to stay in that sleepy, relaxed mindset too. Maybe try a technique or something, a meditation, something to kind of just relax your awareness a little bit.
Mr. Johnson, we will get to dream delvings as our next topic once we kind of sort through this a little bit. But yeah. I think he wants to hear your take on dream delving. But yeah, figuring out from this, so this, were you awake the whole night? Did you eventually fall asleep? Because if you're awake the full 4 hours, what were you doing? What did you do anything during that time? What's the kind of context there? Were you just laying in bed trying to fall back asleep for several hours? Because those are different situations.
Yeah. So when you say dream delving, do you mean like the wild, or what are you referring to?
Dream delving is he's heard me describe dream delving before. I actually taught him dream delving. He wants to hear your take on it, I think.
Can you define it so I don't know what that means?
So it's something I think I mentioned before we started, but it's something I mentioned in reference to the conference. So it's a term the community came up with. I was actually taught it. I didn't come up with it, but I've helped to popularize it. And it's an active recall technique. It's something that is recommended in terms of dream recall by the scientific community, but they do not name it, and I think that's to their detriment because it is a separate, distinct practice. Basically, what you do is you stay in the position you woke up in, and because your sleeping position, what state-dependent memory is, right? I assume.
Yeah.
Okay, so your sleeping position is associated with your most recent dream memories.
Mm-hmm.
And so you stay in that position you woke up in, and you think about what was I just doing? What was I just thinking? What was I just touching,
and you re-enter the dream,
hearing?
basically.
No, that's incorrect. All right? This is not a lucid dreaming technique. This is an active dream recall technique. Your goal is to remember your dreams. Your goal is not to re-enter.
Okay, so that when you say dream delving, you say just to remember based on that,
So
based on
so
dream.
what you're doing is using that state dependent memory, and you're trying to, this is especially for people who struggle with recall in particular. And so you're trying to pull up as much as you can. You're gauging your recent memory. Okay, what was I just doing? What was I dreaming about? What was I doing? What was I seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, etc.? What were my recent thoughts or emotions? What was I feeling? What was
Okay.
going on? And then you try to, and I'm going to ask this question for you actually. So you actually start at the end of the dream and you work your way
Mhm.
back. Why do you do this?
Gotcha. I do that all the time, actually. I didn't even know that was what you would call it, but
It's called
I
dream
do that
delving.
because that's my most recent. So I try to focus on the last thing I can remember of the dream, or
Hmm.
sometimes the most notable part of the dream. And usually the feeling of the dream will kind of help me do that.
Okay.
If anything, I'll focus on the feeling or anything I do remember notably
Yeah.
from the dream. The body position thing is a big one. And I have another tip too that I learned from somebody that actually has helped me. If I wake up specifically from like a REM dream and I want to remember it, I'll keep my eyes closed in the same body position and I'll move my
Hmm.
eyes back and forth behind my eyelids. And that's something about doing that like triggers my brain to remember the dream.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But can you think about the specific reason why it's recommended to start at the end of the dream and not the beginning when you're dream delving?
My guess would be because either that was like the most recent thing you can remember.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
So what do you think would be like the easiest thing to remember from a dream, given the fact that dream memories tend to fade really quickly as you're waking up?
I mean, for me, it's the most notable part of the dream, not necessarily the
Mhm.
last thing, just like the
Um,
most.
it can be both. It can be the most notable or the last thing, the most recent thing you were just doing, the thing you were just experiencing. But you're working your way backwards because those memories are
Yeah.
associated with the other memories that happened before that and that happened before that. And so you're trying to use that memory, that part of it, to recall other parts of the dream, to actually pull those other memories out, to recall them.
Yeah. It's like a thread, and then it just starts
That is
coming out.
correct, because
Yeah.
it's all associative, and you're pulling it all together. And so this is something that I actually have 1200 character text that I kind of copy paste everywhere. It's actually my full recall text is 1966 characters. I know because every time I select all to copy it on Reddit, it says 1966 characters selected. So um
That's
but basically that's a big part of it. And it's the most active thing you can do for recall because everything else is pretty
yeah.
passive. You're trying to journal, you're trying to write it down, but you kind of need that thing to write down first. This
Yeah.
is the most active thing you can do to actually try to pull those memories out. And here's another thing. So you sometimes you can remember one dream doing that, sometimes you can remember multiple dreams.
Yeah.
Another part of this is if you sleep in multiple positions throughout the night, you can then move to a different position that you sleep in and
Hmm.
repeat the process.
Yep, I do that a lot too. And I add the layer of I'll have a voice activated voice recorder. I do this almost every night actually. I'll just have it automatically going on my phone. So if I want to start just speaking from that body position with my eyes closed, I'll be able to gather that without having to get up and write it
A
out.
voice activated voice recorder sounds pretty neat. You don't sleep talk then, do you?
No, I don't. I just only, and
Good.
in the morning it just shows me, sometimes I'll get like my dog or random shit, but I can just sift through them pretty easily and find. And this has helped me remember so many dreams in the middle of the night that I never would have remembered or had the energy to get up and write it out.
That's
And I actually
pretty
remember
cool,
more
actually.
details because I didn't move. I stayed in the body, I cycled through my body positions, whatever I had to do. So I always suggest that to people. I love voice activated
Okay.
recorders for that.
Well, Joseph L has the next stage for us. So this is for Sheriza. This is the person on the Discord. This is the person who is waking up at 4 hours into their sleep when they are typically trying to wake back to bed after 5. This has happened to them twice. Um, and we had just asked them, have they been able to fall asleep, or the context of what happens behind this. And this is the reply. I tried to go back to sleep for both times. The first time, I fell back asleep after 2 hours. The second time, I couldn't fall back asleep at all.
Hmm.
I think this happened, and this is the context here. I think this happened because I was too excited and couldn't let go of my thoughts.
Yeah, that'll definitely make it hard to fall asleep if you just let your mind run and wake you up. Meditation, like some sort of anchor, mindfulness meditation, anything to calm you down, and might help.
Okay. And James Johnson again commented, "Association!" Exclamation point. But yes, if your thoughts are like really wandering or you're really hyper paced, I get that in my brain too. Like I'm constantly thinking about something, and it's sometimes it's a benefit. Sometimes it's a blessing. Sometimes it's a curse.
Mhm.
But yeah, I can see how that would happen. I do wonder if there might be something else there because lying awake for in bed for 4 hours trying to fall back asleep and not being able to or more, and just not being able to return to sleep sounds like it's only happened twice. I don't know if this is the beginning of a pattern or if it's certain nights of the week or what the deal could be here. Because I know you've been practicing more than 2 nights. I know you've been practicing for a while. Actually, I think at least a couple weeks, right? You've been practicing at least a couple weeks, if not more, doing this, and so I do wonder what the underlying issue is. Obviously, of course, like being too hyperactive could be part of it as well. But I wonder if there's anything
Yeah.
else going on because being awake for 4 hours in bed without falling back asleep, um, that's a long time to be laying there.
Yeah.
However long, yeah, 2 hours that first time is long enough. I mean, that's a long time to lay there.
That's true. And I would also wonder, does that happen a lot? Like if you wake up in the middle of the night, do you normally have time
That's the thing.
struggle
That's
falling
their
asleep
second
or is
time that this has happened.
ever? But like with intention of wake back to bed or just like randomly I can't go back to
They've
sleep. You know what
they've
I mean?
they've been doing wake back to beds for a couple weeks now.
Okay. Well, yeah, so it might be. Yeah, who knows? Interesting though.
Yeah, and they haven't reported anything like this to me on Discord in
Well,
the
I
past
would
couple weeks.
say like try not to latch onto that limiting belief of like, oh, I won't
Exactly.
be able to go back to sleep now. I'm screwed. Like don't latch onto that too quickly or at
Mhm.
all.
Exactly.
Yeah, just find ways to keep yourself relaxed. I like using like lavender, essential oils, like the diffuser, and just things that'll just keep me in like a sleepy vibe. Um, but that happens to me every once in a while, and it's mostly when I'm stressed or anxious, or I can't go back to sleep because, like you said, my
Yeah.
mind is running. So it's just like a mental thing.
That is the thing. Like, yeah, if you are like really stressed out about something or you're worried about something, or maybe you think like, one of the things that really does it for me is impending deadlines. Like if I have to get up
Hmm.
at a certain time, um, and I'm trying to sleep, the closer it gets to that time, the
Oh
harder it is
yeah,
to fall back asleep.
facts. Me too. Because I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I don't want to risk it. I'm just up now. Fuck it.
Well, I know I'm gonna wake up to that alarm. I'm just worried I'm not gonna be able to get enough sleep in it, so then it's harder to fall back asleep.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like I'm not gonna get much sleep at
It's all
all. Then
mental for sure.
yes, it is. It's so. But especially if it's something you don't want to wake up for, that in particular.
Oh
Or if it's something really engaging and fun. I mean, like, oh, I'm going on this vacation. It's just a few hours from now. I
yeah.
can't wait. Like, I have. It's really funny is I know for a fact if I make it to the Netherlands next year, I'm gonna be jet lagged out of my mind my first couple of days
That's
because
cool.
you want to guess what the probability is of me sleeping on a plane?
Probably like 0.
It is Blutarski's GPA from Animal House. You are correct. And for context, for those of you who aren't old enough to know what Animal House is, that's 0.0, or his tagline after that, 7 years of hard work down the drain.
I could
um,
sleep on a plane. So anyway, I'll see you in Netherlands though.
yeah, but yeah, like I've because and it's not just a plane; it's any vehicle. I haven't been able to sleep in any moving. Well, it's not any vehicle aside from a cruise ship, like where I'm fully laid on a bed since like I was a young kid. Even when Dad and I went on a trip together last year, I stayed up all night the night before, and I couldn't fall asleep in the car with the receipt reclined, mind you, and being in a somewhat comfortable position.
Yeah.
And then the time before that, I was the closest I've come to falling asleep on a moving vehicle was on an Amtrak Acela train heading back to DC from Philly, and I had been awake for 30 hours straight up to that point, and so that's the closest I've ever come to falling asleep on a
Yeah.
vehicle.
Damn. By force. You just couldn't take it. That's funny.
Brute
Yeah,
force.
environment is interesting when it comes to like how well you can sleep and
Mm.
having a good sleep environment is a big thing too.
Yeah, so I will walk off that plane into whatever airport, and I will be like, I will have been up because those flights are usually in the evening, and if I have to connect, because I will have to connect, I will have been up since like probably noon the day before or earlier, depending on when I had to get the flight out to
Yeah.
Dallas. I've probably been up since like that the date or earlier, and then come I'd probably be up for like 15 hours or so by the time we actually land and it'd be like 3 in the morning, and I'd be ready to go to bed, and I'll just be like dragging. It'll be 8 a.m. because I didn't get any sleep on the plane, and it'll be 9 a.m. and I'll just be like walking around the airport, going like, and like ready. But I'll push through it, and then I'll be like awake for 27 hours or something. And then I'll crash hard that night, and so maybe I won't be too jet lagged. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'll be jet lagged too, so we'll be fine after a few days.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome.
So he said between those 2 times, wake back to bed worked perfectly. But after I had my first lucid dream, which was just a day like or so ago, I might have raised my expectations way too high, and I just couldn't wait. I'm
Here you
thinking
go.
of trying about I guess there's like a 2-minute sleep technique thing in Dream Cafe that they're thinking about trying, but none of that's worked for me, but it does work for people. So
Yeah,
definitely give it a try. I do think anticipation's a real killer, and here's why
yeah,
anticipation's killer. It keeps you awake.
yeah.
Anticipation's a
And
killer.
it'll ruin your lucid dream too. It'll make it last shorter, less stable. Like try to stay calm. Just practice that.
Well, not necessarily in the
Well,
sense like
maybe
it doesn't have to.
just
It
like
was
the excitement. Yeah.
like, well, excitement doesn't have to wake you up. You can experience very exciting,
Oh,
very
yeah, for
thrilling
sure.
dreams without waking up. That's actually one of the common like limiting myths out there is that if you get excited, you're going to wake up. That is
Yeah,
actually one of the common
that's true. I was just saying,
myths.
like,
But
common beginner
anticipation is different
issues
from
that I run
excitement,
into.
though, in a sense, because there's different types of anticipation.
Yeah,
There's like nervous anticipation. There's like excited anticipation. There's like anxious anticipation. Oh, there's this really thing I'm dreading that's coming up really soon. You're
that's true.
anticipating all right, but that doesn't make you excited in the slightest. So
That's true. Yeah.
but the thing that I think anticipation impacts the most is falling asleep and getting to sleep. And for me, that's one of the reasons I don't wild too often. I actually, when I started wilding, I got to a point where I would notice when I would like, I would notice signs when I was going to get ready to transition, and I would anticipate it. And just boom. But I don't do it often just because I'm a light sleeper. I don't have that kind of patience because it can take me a bit to try to do it, and so I don't aim to wild too often. It's very opportunistic. I treat it like an opportunistic thing. If I wake up and I feel like I can fall asleep pretty quickly, and then I'll give it a go. Otherwise, I stick with what works for me.
Yeah, that's good too. Because
Cardi asks, "How do you know it's in the Netherlands next year?" I've been trying to get information about that.
yeah,
Is it
every
confirmed? Yes.
it is. I'm pretty sure. Yes. I don't think they've officially announced it, but every
No.
3 years it's in Europe. So this would be the 3rd year, and then it'll be back in the States after
I
that.
heard from Voidway Explorer from Just Philip that it's going to be in like I think Gomert, Netherlands next year. Is what he heard. I asked him to confirm it like twice while he was at the conference and before he left, and he did. I got him to give me the name of the town. Nothing's
Yeah.
obviously been released yet, but that's the assumption I'm operating on.
Yeah, they were talking about it at the conference a lot, so I'm pretty sure.
Joseph L says, so I should relax, stay calm, and lower my expectations. I would say relax and stay calm, yeah, and just try to be more passive with the expectations. I mean, the expectations themselves don't have to be the issue. Just be more like passive about it. I mean, don't let them influence how you're falling asleep in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty good advice.
Mm-hmm. This has been a lot of fun.
I know.
I love. You see why I like doing these?
Oh yeah, we should do it more often. And does YouTube record and save it, or how does this work?
Absolutely. In fact, this will be
forever?
on my channel in perpetuity after it's done.
So I guess on mine too. Okay, good. Because I definitely I might take the audio and like drop it on the podcast or something. But I definitely want to do this again because there's so many like rabbit holes to get into.
Like you can always take the audio and then like delete the live and then like upload it as a video. You can always do that if you want.
Yeah.
Because then you can put your own visuals to it.
That's true. Yeah, okay, so I'll download it, or if I have any trouble, I'll message you for help.
It shouldn't be that hard. It's just in YouTube Studio. You select it.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's easy.
That's
cool. Easy. Yep.
Cool. So it'll be available to watch later.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely fun. We should do this more often. And I also, I wasn't looking at the comments at first when I was having technical difficulties, but Jesse Lyons dropped in and said, "Hey," and yeah,
that's the guy you wanted.
Yeah, he has aphantasia.
Yes, yeah,
exactly. So that would be cool.
One totally we could do it would be cool if we could talk to him and teach him lucid dreaming.
I know. Yeah, I'm gonna talk to him about it. See if he's up
That would
for
be a
it.
lot of fun.
Yeah, it would be.
Okay, so we're gonna have to schedule this in the future. Obviously, you know how to find me. I know how to find you,
For sure.
and
We'll be doing
maybe we
this
could
more
do
often.
maybe we can do a three-way. I know Philip would like to stream with you as well,
Yeah,
so we could do like a three-way. I can stream up to 3 destinations, so I am good to
cool.
go on that side.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's plan it. If you want to talk to him or make a group chat or whatever, we can schedule that. Because yeah, I'm trying to do this definitely
Okay.
more.
I just want to read a couple more things to you because these are directed at you on my stream.
Oh yeah.
Joseph, I know James Johnson to this. He said, I believe appreciation for normal dreams, improving dream call, and intention in the meantime could help. Joseph L said to you, all right, thank you, and Amina very much. So thanking both of us.
Oh, thank you. So sweet.
Well, guys, this has been Amina from the Dreamworld Podcast. You can find her on YouTube at the Dreamworld Podcast. And what's your TikTok for everybody?
Amina's Dream World.
Amina's Dreamworld on TikTok. Obviously, this has been Skyfall Blind Dreamer on my end. Please, if you like the content, go to both channels and give both of us a like and subscribe. Definitely can both use it. And thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for future streams like this because there will be more where that came from.
Most definitely. Yes. And thank you so much for showing me the YouTube ropes. Yeah, make sure y'all
Is this
follow.
your first time streaming on YouTube?
Yes.
Really? You've
Yes.
never streamed on YouTube before?
No, I'm so behind. Dude, I do everything by myself.
On
Like people
TikTok, right?
think that I try to get all the platforms. Yeah, I stream on TikTok.
Mhm.
I'm kind of new to the YouTube game, so I'm trying to
What I really
repurpose.
suck at with YouTube is editing. I am terrible at it. I also
Really?
don't do thumbnails. I wonder
That's
why.
funny.
I wonder
Yeah.
why.
I
But yeah, live streaming has been what I
I love
basically
it.
do most of. It's the easiest. How did you like StreamYard?
I like it a lot. I like it a lot for sure.
It's pretty easy to
Yeah,
use. It's
pretty
very
easy.
seamless.
Very
So when
seamless.
it comes to live streaming, it's definitely got some perks. Philip liked it too, but yeah, I think we could do some three ways. This is a great way to panel. Even though I can only stream to 3 destinations, I got premium, so I can have up to 10 people on here. It's
Oh,
insane.
cool. That's
I think
awesome.
it's either 10 or 8. I think I might have 8 or something, but still, I can have a lot of people on here at once. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is literally exactly what I needed to get into for the podcast because just keeping the conversation going, that's what I
Yeah,
do.
it's amazing. All right, well, we can have a good one, and if we come up with any specific dream topics to discuss, we might try to narrow the focus next time.
Yeah, this is a good intro though.
Yeah,
Covered
this
all the
has been.
bases, get to know each other.
Yeah, exactly. All
Okay,
right, well,
sounds
thank you
good.
everybody, and I'm gonna cut off this end. Have a good day, everyone. And